Moving north to Iraq now. An apparent civil war breaking out in Baghdad following the resignation of political leader and Shiite cleric Muqtada al-Sadr. Al-Sadr's supporters taking over the parliament and the palace buildings and fighting to push foreign influences out of the country, namely Iran. Joining me to discuss is Middle East expert and researcher at the Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies, Dr. Mordechai Kedar. Dr. Kedar, thanks for being with us now. UN peacekeeping forces have essentially left the green zone. There's fighting in the streets, at least 15 dead and hundreds wounded. Is this a new so-called Arab Spring or Arab Autumn, given the season?
No, it actually shows that everybody who is involved in what happens in Iraq, except for Iran, of course, actually gives up. The fact that Muqtada Sadr declared that he is going out of politics, it means that he is fed up with the failure of politics to calm Iraq down. And look, what happened is actually a few months ago, the supporters of Iran failed in the elections. And there was supposed to be a government which will represent the Arab part of Iran rather than those who are behind Iran. However, Iran with its militias did not allow or didn't enable the parties to work freely, and there is no government there, therefore. So Muqtada Sadr, who once was a friend of the Iranians but now became their enemy, he says, okay, if politics cannot work, I'm getting out of politics. So all his supporters streamed to the streets in order to show that they will not give up to the Iranians. And this is actually now against Iran.
Well, but al-Sadr's resignation came after he led his supporters into the parliament buildings and a number of other popular protests. Was it maybe a calculated move to cause such an eruption, and then maybe once things calm down, as they have started to calm down already in the green zone, maybe al-Sadr will return to politics?
Yes, no doubt. He knew that if he declares that he is leaving politics, means that he is fed up with politics and he cannot deal with politics anymore. All his supporters, who actually were his forces, real forces with guns and everything, they will definitely fight in order to make sure that he comes back to politics in order to be one of the leaders of the country. So he declared it. So they actually act according to what he expected. They bursted into the green zone, and now he's telling them to come out after everybody understood that they are not giving up. And now, as much as I heard, he is on a hunger strike in order to calm the situation
Exactly.
down.
All right, well, there seems to be clear Israeli interest in supporting al-Sadr's faction in order to disrupt the Iranian corridor of influence in the Middle East. How might Israel step in? Do you think Israel will get involved at all?
No. I would advise to any Israeli to keep away from Iraq, because Iraq, you know what happens there today. You never know what will happen there tomorrow. And Iraq is a swamp of problems that nobody with the right mind wants to go into this after the Americans actually destroyed Saddam Hussein in 2003 and thus pushed the country into a havoc and the mayhem which we see until this very day.
Do you think that al-Sadr's supporters will succeed now or in the near future in actually expelling Iranian or American or other foreign influences from the country?
It all depends on how resolute they are. If they will declare a war, real war against Iran and against those who support Iran, the militias in Iraq, first of all, it might lead to a civil war in Iraq, but only by this way they can get rid of all those, I would say, the parts of the Iraqi tentacle of the Iranian octopus.
All right, so again, how do you see this playing out? And will Iran's influence, or rather Iran's influence is spilling into Syria and Lebanon as well, we know, and those nations are looking very closely at the events in Iraq. How do you think that this might spill over or affect those nations?
Look, Syria anyway is a mayhem. Lebanon is a country which is held in the pocket of Hezbollah, of the Iranian mercenary. So I think that the only country which still can do something against Iran is Iraq, mainly because of the hatred vis-a-vis Iran, hatred to Iran from the Shia Arabs. And this is what it's amazing. The fact that they are Shia does not make them necessarily supporters of Iran. On the contrary, they are Shia Arabs and they are very much proud about being Arabs, and the last thing on earth, they want to be subjugated to the Iranian regime. So, of course, Iran has some influence there, no doubt. Yet, I think that the majority, especially within the younger generation, they don't want to be seen under the Iranian regime, because they see exactly what happens to any country which becomes under the auspice or under the hegemony of Iran, like Lebanon, like Syria, like Yemen, and maybe Gaza as well.
All right, Dr. Mordechai Kedar, thank you so much for your insights.